In the studio now to discuss what happened in court, Lulama Nare, Chair of the Gender Commission, and Lisa Vetten from Wits University. In our Durban studio, we have Anshu Padayachee from the Advice Desk for Abused Women. And joining us later in our Cape Town studios, Kathleen Dey from Rape Crisis Cape Town Trust. Lulama, let me start off with you. Is the lawyer even allowed to do that?
This is what we have been always complaining about the justice system, that lawyers get into the courts and they do this. We saw it in Brick's case, where a 13-year-old was raped. The defense lawyer asked, were you a virgin when you were raped? We're talking about a 13-year-old, it's statutory rape. But what we have seen happening was that the magistrates and the judges have not been attending to this business, like this judge in this trial, that he has shown the commitment to defend the victims of gender-based violence.
Now, I'd like to go back. We've got the soundbite of the lawyer talking about this penetration and what she was going through at that time. Let's just listen to it again.
How many centimetres? Do you know?
How can he measure?
My Lord, she could have felt it.
How would he know that? How many centimetres? How would he know that? How would she know that?
She could have felt it.
And then measure it in the end at the same time. I would not allow that question.
Lisa, I can see the shock on your face.
It's an extraordinary question. You might be able to justify something like that if you were looking at a charge of sexual assault versus rape, where questions of penetration do become an issue. But this is rape. There's no discussion about being sexual assault. So a question like that is turning her into a pornographic spectacle. It's inviting people to think and look at her in a very sexual way, and it's utterly irrelevant. It's gratuitous. It's intended to demean and degrade. And, I mean, as I've said before, an accused is entitled to a fair trial, but that does not mean that the complainant gives up her right to dignity.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, when you hear that, you wonder what his intention is. I mean, it's quite provocative and smutty, and you wonder why.
Well, precisely. What is the value of it? Did she have a tape measure at the time? I mean, it's a stupid question.
But also, there is this sense of wanting to show women as loose and women as available, and I think that is what he is building towards.
Anshu, what did you think what was happening and is happening in the court at the moment?
Well, clearly this, the lawyer has clearly been badgering this witness over and over again, trying to break her down and getting her to not to be able to answer the question so he can win that point. It's not about her, it's about winning a point, it's about protecting his client and not justice. And I think that is why women fail to come to court, because they're victimized all over again. And if one just looks at who is in the court, it's the prosecutor's a male, the lawyer, the defending lawyer is a male, the judge is a male. And here's this young girl sitting in this courtroom with a whole lot of people who support this perpetrator and who are laughing as she is giving her testimony. So that is, again, one of those things that really prevent women from coming to court.
Let's listen to a little of what she did have to say in court today.
Hearing this man, this high and mighty man, telling me that he is sorry for what he did to me would have given me closure.
Would that have been sufficient for you?
I never got it, so I don't know.
Did you think it would be sufficient for you?
It would have given me some closure.
What do you mean by closure? Do you mean that you could have put everything behind you once he had apologized?
I don't think so.
Well, what do you mean by closure?
So I think I just explained what I mean by closure.
Ma'am, you haven't explained what you meant by closure. I just want to understand what you mean by closure. Do you mean that once he had apologized, you would have been able to put everything that happened to you behind you?
I don't know. I never got the closure that I wanted, so I don't know how things would have panned out if he apologized.
You never asked him to apologize, correct?
I told him that what he did to me, I did not like. And I asked him, why was it so necessary? Why is it so necessary for you to do this? And he told me, there's no other option. It's either I'm in or out. That's what his response was.
Please just answer the question. Did you at any stage request an apology from him?
No. I didn't say I want you to apologize to me.
Thank you.
Let's bring in Kathleen Dey from Rape Crisis, who is in our Cape Town studio. I mean, Kathleen, I can feel all of us sitting here just shaking with rage, hearing that, witnessing what she's going through. From somebody who deals with a lot of rape victims, where does this leave her?
Well, I think she's given a strong testimony, and she's talking about closure. And a lot of the rape survivors that we see at Rape Crisis do find that being able to tell their version of events in court is incredibly empowering. But it is provided that they do get the kind of support that they need. Just one other person in the courtroom that's encouraging them and that's helping them to have that certainty about what's required of them is incredibly helpful. And I must say I commend social media and the public of South Africa for the support that they've given Cheryl Zondi. I think that also makes an incredible difference to her, to know that we all are actually with her, and respect enormously the job that she's done over the last few days.
Kathleen, I was quite surprised how little support, or what little support, victims get before going into court. Often they're not told that they're going to face the person who raped them.
Yes. It really is, it is shocking how little support survivors get, and also what a huge difference it makes just to have that very simple preparation. We do court preparation just in the half hour before the trial begins. Sometimes we get a little bit longer than that. But it's time enough to give some practical advice, to show the layout of the court. But most importantly, I think, to tune into the emotional needs of each survivor, they can be very different in the needs that they have. I mean, Cheryl is extraordinarily composed. She's been a very strong witness, but sometimes she obviously cried and broke down, and there are some survivors who, you know, they've stayed awake the night before, imagining and rehearsing what they're going to say, feeling traumatized by remembering the original event itself, traveling long distances sometimes to get to the court, not having a meal before they go in. I mean, there are myriad reasons why you feel additionally fragile on the stand. And there are very few courts in this country that actually provide that kind of support to rape survivors. And so, unfortunately, what we're seeing now is commonplace, sadly.
All right, we've got a caller on the line from Howick. Vicky, go ahead.
Right, we've got a caller on the line from Howick. Vicky, go ahead. Hi.
Hi, Vicky. If you can turn off the TV, that would help. But what's your question?
Hi. I've been watching this today. Mm-hmm. I've been watching this trial today.
Okay. All right, Vicky. Sorry, we got a problem there. Do you think the law in South Africa is letting women down? Do we have a problem here? Is this something that needs to be changed? Is it antiquated?
We should change the way the defense lawyers act inside our courts. We should change how our magistrates and our courts view sexual offenses and gender violence inside their courts, but also the articulation of patriarchy inside the courts. It has to be addressed, because what we have seen as a gender commission is that they vary. Some magistrates see it, some judges see it, some don't. So you find that the victim is all alone being hunted down by the defense lawyers. And the other thing is that the bar councils, they have to raise the bar in terms of gender sensitivity and how they treat gender violence in the country.
I mean, do you think, I mean, if you look at the Middle East, and thank goodness we're not that bad, but some countries in the Middle East that'll stone women after they've been raped. I mean, are women held in less esteem once they've been raped? I mean, how do men and the legal profession actually see them?
You know, I think they don't actually see the weight of their bias because it is so entrenched in the law, and some of it, for instance, the whole idea that when women delay reporting, we should view them with a little bit of suspicion. That is a 1,000-year-old legal rule that dates back to the Middle Ages called hue and cry. So that is the weight of history that still brings down our law, and I think many lawyers don't even see what they are repeating. I mean, to use another example, a woman with her skirt up can run faster than a man with his pants down. So the law has, for centuries, been filled with ideas that when women bring forward rape complaints, they're actually really just lying. They're looking to extract money from a man, they're looking to blackmail him, they're possibly a little bit neurotic, hysterical, making things up.
You wonder why a rape victim would lie.
Well, precisely. So I think because that has been so normalized and so naturalized, it's taken a while for people to actually realize that this is wrong. I mean, I can still think back to the Zuma trial, which was about 12 years ago, where we saw something quite similar playing out. And at least then people were becoming horrified about the question around her previous sexual history. We haven't seen that coming up in this trial. So perhaps there's a measure of some kind of progress there. We're now looking at other questions that people are now looking at and saying, but how can we be asking these sorts of things now? And that does show that mores have shifted. I mean, maybe Mr. Doberman was hoping that people were going to greet him as the next Barry Rue, I don't know, for his fine performance.
So well done you.
Yes, but it has very clearly backfired. And I do think what did trouble me was that we had to wait for the judge to intervene. We weren't getting the prosecutor to stand up immediately and object. That was a bit concerning.
I wonder what sort of message that is coming from him. And Anshu, also the fact, I think you touched on it a little earlier on, the fact that he's had so many supporters, rooting for him, the wife standing up and shouting. Why do women in particular support men suspected of rape?
Well, again, it's the same story as this young girl had as well. I mean, she was so afraid to go against him. There was this... He was a big man, he was a man of God. No one would go against him. She was comfortable in that home. There were 30 other women in that home as well who didn't come out and speak about it. But she was brave enough to do that. But I think more than that, during the line of questioning, I found that this advocate was really going for her on the issue of blame. How were you to blame for this? Did you do this? And that was the line of questioning. He was trying to prove that she was to blame rather than understanding her circumstances.
We've got some video of her, the victim, and the pastor, and let's have a look at it. It says a lot when you look at the body language.
I pray for the that you may enhance their spirit in you, that no power of darkness will touch them. And from today, I anoint you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Kathleen, I don't know if you were able to see that, but it's the pastor with the victim and some other girls, and it's rather ominous knowing what was going down there. Why would somebody like the pastor do what he did? What's in it for him?
Well, I don't know. I mean, long years of working in this field, still I don't have that answer. But I do know that many rapists do work their way into positions of trust and power where their actions are not questioned, or where it's very difficult for their actions to be resisted or disclosed or made into a crime. So you will find that with teachers, with doctors, with priests. These are people who get themselves into a position of trust, and then they are unassailable, relatively unassailable. And you will see that from the public as well. They will say, but he was such a respected figure. He was such a good sportsman. He was, all of those kinds of things protect the rapist at the end of the day.
We've got another call on the line from Pretoria. Anonymous, go ahead.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
I'm a bit worried with what is actually taking place in our country. I've heard what the defense lawyer is saying and the methods that he was using. For me, that is uncalled for. I'm having a mother who was nearly raped, my sister who was raped. And when I start hearing another male asking such questions, it makes me mad, because it seems as if he does not understand what rape is all about. As males, we are trying to ensure that.
All right, thank you for that.
We're trying to ensure that.
Okay, thank you for that, Anonymous. I mean, it's incredible to hear that sort of response, and why should we be surprised? What sort of role should men play in this?
I think, firstly, what he's doing is important because it's empathizing with a woman. It's not taking the position or the viewpoint, particularly of another man, saying, well, you know, what was she wearing at the time? How much had she been drinking? He's not taking that route. He's choosing to empathize with his mother and with his sister and to understand the particular pain that they have felt. I mean, I think it's also important to acknowledge that we do have boys and men who are also raped. So they should be thinking very carefully about the perspective of a victim, because they're not exempt from this either. So it is important to have this kind of solidarity as an antidote for men to understand that they are affected by this, not only as perpetrators, but sometimes as victims as well. They do play an important role, I think, in helping to disrupt the kind of mythology that says, oh, well, you know, once men get aroused, they can't be stopped, we can't control ourselves. Oh, well, sometimes women lead us on. It's very important that men challenge men's behaviour in that respect.
Now, there's been an outcry, as you know, throughout South Africa, which is obviously a good thing. Let's look at some of the tweets that have been coming in from viewers. You do not know how many of us are advocating for you, Cheryl Zondi. This patriarchal justice system will not prevail. Be strong. We love you. We support you. And those who've been victimized by this demon. Ukali, when the lawyer asked, did you have a jolly time? There is your view and acceptance of rape, South Africa. Right there, and don't tell me otherwise. He is not the first. He's not the only. This is what women across the country get asked every single day.
I completely agree. And we are having a listening briefing inside the court with the CRL, the other Commission on Religion and Culture. And I think one of the things that we are observing and we are observing in this, our research on the church itself, Omotoso is a daddy, is called daddy. Everyone in the church calls her daddy. And there lies the power relations issue. And when this advocate keeps on asking about why didn't you do this, is actually downplaying the fact that there is a power relations, unequal power relations here.
All right, we've got a caller who's going to talk about just that. Teresa from Alberton, go ahead. Teresa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm highly upset with this whole issue, and I've got one question for the advocate. If it was his daughter sitting in that sand, would he be asking the same questions to her?
That's a great question, Anshu. I mean, you would think that this advocate knows some women who he likes.
Yep. And also, I think just this constant thing about, you're a very good actor. He, again, didn't understand it clearly, didn't understand what it felt like to be a victim, because he expected her to behave in a particular way. And he was unhappy that he couldn't break her down. So he kept saying, you were a good actor. Are you saying that you did this, that you were afraid, but you didn't show you were afraid? So there are these stereotypes about how women are supposed to behave when they're raped or when they are sexually abused in any way. And again, it's this patriarchy. So we're seeing it happen over and over and over again.
Okay, I mean, Kathleen, obviously something needs to change. Where do we go to from here? Does the plight of the victim need to be, I don't know, explained better? Obviously, the law needs to be changed.
I think what we don't also see is the strength of women like Cheryl Zondi, and that, you know, we also have this myth about victims as being helpless, as being broken, but actually many of them do want to tell their stories in court, and they do have that sense of closure from doing so. And I think a lot rests on the prosecution to draw out the other aspects of the story that the defense attorney, it's not in his interests to draw out those aspects of the story. And I think specialist prosecutors, well-trained magistrates, specialised courts in general, which have proper infrastructure and support services to rape survivors, are definitely a model that government should look at. In fact, it has been looking at this and has promised to roll out sexual offences courts across the country. And at Rape Crisis, we have a campaign called the Rape Survivors Justice Campaign that is designed to hold government to account for that promise. And I think that's the change that we are looking for, that and other appropriate models that can support rape survivors on the entire journey post-rape, because it's a very long and difficult one.
And Lisa, I should imagine that it starts way before then, doesn't it? The disparities in South Africa, the anger, the issues that haven't been addressed, post-apartheid, for example. Is that where we start? I mean, the fact that churches are considered safe havens for kids that possibly don't have parents that they can go to.
Yes, I think, you know, if we want to address rape, we have to do more than say patriarchy must change. We actually have to acknowledge the extremely difficult social circumstances that many men have been brought up in. And again, it doesn't justify, but a great many men who have been raped, and I certainly don't want to say anything about Omotoso, have themselves come from abusive childhoods and backgrounds. So I think we need to be asking, what are the kinds of childhoods that we leave so many children growing up in? What are the kinds of spaces that we are creating for them that are safe, that don't make them vulnerable? I think also we need to be thinking about services. So, for instance, little boys who are exposed to violence, what kind of help are we giving them? What help do we give also to anybody who has been victimized in this way? I think, you know, we often want justice, but we forget that another way of justice is providing ways of healing, ways of trying to come to terms with what has happened. You can't undo what has happened, but you can certainly try to make some kind of reparative gesture.
Should we leave it there and hope that this elicits some sort of change in South Africa, the disgust, and it's something that obviously we've got to keep our focus on. Lisa Vetten, Lulama Nare, Anshu Padayachee and Kathleen Dey, thank you very much for talking to us about this.